know you'll make a way.
Good morning and welcome to the very next episode of 25 Live at Home. We are so glad that you joined us here at St. Andrew. My name is Thomas Hartley, Director of Children and Family Ministries. This week, I am going to walk you through our Bible story on this very special Transfiguration Sunday. So we're going to be reading a little bit about the Transfiguration this morning. But before we read the story, I have a game that you and your family could play either before we watch the rest of the video or after. It's called Glow Up Tag. So here's what you'll need. You'll need a small flashlight or a phone light. You'll need a scarf and a hat. So one person in your family is going to wear the scarf and hat and stand in the middle. The rest of the family is going to quietly walk around and gently tap the person who is it. When tapped, the person turns on the flashlight or phone light and calls out a cool word like wow or shine. After 3 taps, the person who's it picks a new person to wear the scarf or hat and becomes one of the tappers. Okay? So it's a quick game, but it helps kids notice light and change. A good way to start thinking about our story where someone's appearance is going to change and shine. All right, so this morning we are in Matthew 17 and we are in verses 1 through 9. So we're in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we are in chapter 17, verses 1 through 9. So let's hear God's word this morning from the Voice translation. 6 days later, Jesus went up to the top of a high mountain with Peter, James, and John. There, something spectacular happened. Jesus' face began to glow and gleam and shine like the morning sun. His clothes gleamed too, bright white like sunlight mirroring off of a snowfall. He was, in a word, transfigured. Suddenly there at the top of the mountain were Moses and Elijah, those icons of the faith, beloved of God. And they talked to Jesus. Peter spoke, saying, Lord, how amazing that we are here to see these heroes of our faith, these men through whom God spoke. Should I quickly build some shelter, 3 small tabernacles for you and Moses and for Elijah? As Peter spoke, a bright cloud enveloped all of them, and the voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. Now, there's a note in the Voice translation says that this is but an echo of the voice that spoke at Jesus' ritual cleansing and baptism. It is an echo of what God said through Moses during his final Sermon on the Mount. God promised that although Moses could not enter the promised land, he would send his people another prophet. Moses' very last wish for his beloved people was that they would listen to the new prophet and that he would come. So then in verse 6 we continue. The voice from heaven terrified the 3 disciples, and they fell prostrate on the ground. But Jesus, who was, by his time, used to his disciples being plagued by fear, touched them. Get up, don't be afraid. And when the disciples got up, they saw that they were alone with their Lord. The 4 men hiked back down the mountain, and Jesus told his disciples to stay silent. Don't tell anyone what happened here, not until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. All right, so each week we break down our Bible story into digestible parts. Who, when, what, why, and where. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about who's in our story. Okay, so we've already actually explored earlier this year in 2026 the disciples and how Jesus came to call some of his disciples. But today we're talking about Jesus and we're talking about Peter, James, and John. Jesus and 3 of his disciples, 2 of whom would write very prominent gospels that you read in the Bible. James also writes a book of the Bible. But so when we read this, Jesus is with his disciples, and they're very important disciples. They're 3 of his closest friends and followers who are on the mountain with him. And so when is this happening? This is in 30 to 33 AD, over 2,000 years ago. Jesus is on his way, and he's in his public ministry. So he finds this time to be separate with his 3 disciples, but this is on his way to eventually the cross. We're in Jesus' public ministry. He's teaching, he's asking questions, he's healing people, doing miracles. And as we go, we know that Jesus is working towards the cross. And at the end of the scripture, it actually says that don't say anything until you see the Son of Man raised from the dead. Jesus knows what's coming. Okay? So then, who else is there but Moses and Elijah? Moses, the guy who parted the Red Sea, is there with him. And Elijah, another famous prophet who foretold of Jesus' coming. So these two prophets that are so important to the Jewish faith, to the Christian faith, they show up in Jesus and they show up with him on this mountainside. So where are they? Jesus and these three guys are on a mountaintop. And we'll come back to this a little bit, but there's three shelters, this idea that Peter has to build in this place, 3 tabernacles or 3 shelters. And so let's talk about what's going on and why do we need to hear this today? So in the story, Jesus is transformed before Peter, James, and John. His face shines like the sun and his clothes turn dazzling white. Moses and Elijah appear and talk with Jesus. All of them, Peter is a little bit scared and amazed at the same time, and he wants to build these 3 tents for Jesus, Moses, and Elijah to stay. And then a bright cloud surrounds them. This is our last who in the story. God's voice speaks, and it says, "This is my son, listen to him." And he announces that he is pleased with Jesus' work. The disciples fall on the ground in fear, and when they look up, it's just Jesus. And Jesus tells them, don't be afraid. But then Jesus also says, don't share about this yet. Wait until the Son of Man is risen from the dead. So why are we learning about this today? This story is an amazing story of Jesus revealing himself even more so to the world and to his disciples and followers. This story tells us more and more about why it's important to know and to love and to have a relationship with Jesus. The Transfiguration helps people understand that Jesus is connected to God and that the big story of God's people, Moses and Elijah, it all moves to Jesus, right? In the Old Testament, Moses is in Egypt and brings the people out. Elijah is this great prophet who tells of these amazing things that are coming. And Jesus is the fulfillment of those promises. It's this one interconnected story. And it's really important to understand why Jesus is so important. The story also shows us how to listen to Jesus. God's voice said, listen to him. And it's a reminder that paying attention to Jesus' teachings matter for how we live. It's when we go through the world and with all of the things happening in our world, it's so important for us to remember and to hear what Jesus said and what Jesus did. Jesus hung out with people who weren't always the most religiously pure, or the people who didn't always do the right thing. Jesus hung out with broken people, with sinners, with people who are unclean, with people who did jobs that people didn't think were very important or were even dangerous. Jesus hung out with people who were broken. Jesus didn't come to fight the world around him. Jesus came to heal it and to bring us closer to him. But how do we do that? Jesus gives us a message of strength even through hard times. The Transfiguration gave the disciples a glimpse of Jesus' glory before the difficult times that are coming. Jesus knows that he's going to go to the cross. But he sparks this tremendous joy to give this hope to the disciples, to give them the understanding that they are people who are here to teach and to love others. So Jesus wants us to use this story as a spark of joy in ourselves, even when we face those hard times. You and your family can see that learning about glimpses of hope can help you be brave during tough seasons of life. Giving that glimpse of hope and telling the good news of Jesus to those around us, you never know when someone's going through a hard time. But it might not be just telling about Jesus. It might be helping give them a meal. It might be giving a friend a smile, sitting with someone at lunch who's all by themselves. It might be finding that person who's being bullied or persecuted and standing up for them. All of those share the same kind of hope that Jesus gave the disciples. That even though they're going through hard times, there are people who want to live and love like Jesus who are there to help. It also talks about in this story that God inspires this respectful wonder. The story helps us understand awe and respect. So as we go into the story, right, they're amazed at Jesus' transformation. But they also are able to be present in that moment, and Peter recognizes the holiness of it and wants to respect it, and so that's why he wants to build the 3 tents. This story shows us that even though we can respond, even though sometimes really cool things can almost be fearful, that we can still respond with that respect and that worship for God's love. Being amazed is a natural and a respectful reaction to very holy or very special events. And it's okay to be afraid, right? Sometimes encounters with God could be a little scary, right? I think about the time that I was in college and I was changing my major and I was up late at night and stressing out over it over a winter break, and I got a little tap on my shoulder, it felt like. And God called me into a new major, into education, to go teach. And it was a little scary. It was scary to feel that or to think about changing that because I had done so much work doing other things. And it was a little scary, that's for sure. But God calls us that it's okay to be afraid, but that he's still calling us into that work and into that inspiring change. So as you work through this week, think about times when you might take a deep breath, you might spend some time and you might pray, you might reflect on this story, you might talk about times when you've been amazed, times when you feel safe, times when you feel curious. Find ways in this week to spend time with the Transfiguration and understand just how important it is that we get to read about Jesus revealing himself to be fully God with his Father. Amen.
All right. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of 25 Live at Home. We are continuing our February series where we talk about health and safety. This week, we welcome Deb Vandergast, and I'll let her tell you a little bit more about herself, but she's going to talk to us a little bit about vaccines. So would you please, again, tell us your name and what you do?
Well, my name is Deb Vandergast. I am the child care nurse consultant for Johnson County Public Health. I serve about 180 child care programs in the county, including in-home and centers. And I am also the Iowa representative for grandparents for vaccines.
So vaccines can sometimes be scary because of the needle. I know my girls were always terrified of it. Mm-hmm. But can you tell us more about the safety of vaccines?
Okay. Well, as we know, vaccines are all very highly tested, and they don't give them to the public until they know they're safe. Now, there have been rare cases where there's been a contaminated batch or one that wasn't properly prepared, and those were immediately removed from the market. The most common cause of a vaccine serious reaction is usually an allergic reaction, but those are even very rare. They've only had 5 documented cases in the United States of death from severe allergic reaction to vaccines in the last 10 years. And, we have millions of doses of vaccines every year. So it's less than 1 in a million risk of even having a serious reaction, and death is very unlikely. We have more deaths from peanut allergies than we do from vaccines. So it's really safe, and they're proven effective. Before we had vaccines, 1 in 5 children didn't live to their 5th birthday. I mean, if you look in cemeteries, there used to be children's sections because death in children was common. We just don't see that anymore. So no, they're very safe. But as far as the needle being scary, well, some vaccines, they've actually are working towards doing a nasal spray. You can actually get a nasal spray for your flu vaccine now. But there's ways to make it less painful. And kids, you're going to like this one. Bring a tablet, play a video game. It actually will reduce your sense of pain because you're distracted. Sugar or sweetness helps too. So suck on a sucker, or maybe, give a piece of candy to a child. Make sure it's not a choking hazard. And that actually helps. Singing songs can help distract. And for babies, breastfeed or give them a bottle. That sucking helps comfort them. So, and you can also ask your doctor or whoever is giving you the shot if they have a numbing spray. They use cold and basically the same kind of pain reliever that your dentists use, or in teething gel, to kind of numb your skin a little bit so it doesn't hurt. But they have to put them on a few minutes in advance. So make sure you ask before they're ready to give you the shot.
Right. Yeah.
My girls have both used that, and they called it Elsa spray.
The Elsa spray. I love it.
The Elsa
So,
spray.
but the big thing is for parents, keep a positive attitude. If you're acting scared, you'll scare your kids. Instead say, hey, this is a rite of passage. We both are getting our COVID and flu shot so that we can stay healthy all winter. And then let's go get an ice cream afterwards to celebrate.
Great. Thank you for that advice, and that's very good to know. So some of us may have heard the term natural immunity. Can you tell us the difference between natural immunity from a disease and getting vaccinated from that disease?
Well, natural immunity means getting exposed to the disease, getting sick, so then your body builds antibodies. But that's really risky. I mean, let's talk about measles. We've had 3 people die from measles last year. And, but yet nobody died from the measles vaccine. And, what was it? I have to look at my thing here, but I believe the highest rate of hospitalizations we've been seeing in measles is in children 5 and younger. And so, and with measles, you can wind up with permanent damage from encephalitis, swelling in the brain. It can affect your immune system. And some diseases, people who survive these diseases may have lifelong blindness, deafness, intellectual disability. It's just not worth the risk. Whereas getting a vaccines are great because it's kind of amazing how they work. It's fooling your body into thinking it's being attacked when it's not. It's just taking a little sugar or protein from the surface of a virus, or getting your own body to create that protein instead of it being injected into your body. And then your body goes, oh, look, an invader, quick, build an army. We need special weapons just for this invader. And they build up the army, and it's like, oh, it really was an invader. But when the invader really comes, the army is ready and armed. And so your body can react quick before the invader, that virus or bacteria, can multiply and build a bigger army for themselves. So it attacks while the invader's still small. So what a great idea. And they're finding more and more ways to do that for more and more illnesses. They're still coming out with new vaccines. So,
And norovirus would be a great one.
yes, that was terrible when it goes through. Yeah.
I like the visual,
Mhm.
so I appreciate that. I think that all of us can understand that and how that helps our bodies to work better. So
Yeah.
thank you. Something we might be wondering is, how do vaccines actually work? I think that's kind of what you just
You know what I'm
explained.
saying. So people were concerned because the COVID vaccine was new and it was very different. It was, this mRNA basically works similar to DNA to tell your body, here's the recipe to build a protein. And it was saying, here's the recipe to build a protein that mimics a protein on the COVID virus, so your body will build that army. Other ones may use a dead virus or a piece of that virus. They did for a while have a live virus for polio, but then that was weakened. But I believe they've gotten away from that entirely because there was rare cases of it causing polio. But so it's pretty neat how it works. It's pretty simple. Cool thing is we actually have one vaccine now that prevents cancer.
Oh, wow.
And that's the HPV vaccine. Actually, 90% of people will have been exposed to HPV, gotten HPV by the time they're 60. Most people, though, their immune systems manage to fight it off, and they may never have any symptoms at all and it goes away. Or they can have what's called a latent infection where they have no symptoms for a decade or more. Now, my voice is kind of hoarse. It's because I have HPV warts growing on my vocal cords. Everybody, it's not uncommon to get warts on your hands.
Yeah.
That's HPV.
Wow.
The difference between the HPVs are there's some that grow on your genitals or on the inside of your body. And so the vaccine is to prevent those. Did you know 100% of cervical cancers are caused by HPV?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's why they push it for younger kids.
Yes, because if we wait until kids are adults and they've been exposed, it's too late. The vaccine won't work. That vaccine wasn't available when I was young, and I have HPV on my vocal cords. They can't cut out the infected cells without cutting a hole in my vocal cords. And so they're constantly regrowing. They just shave off what's growing on it. I have surgery every 6 to 12 weeks for the rest of my life. It's incurable. It's like $100,000 a year. I have a week after every surgery where I cannot talk. I can't do my job, go out and visit people and stuff. I have to just work on the computer, and I can't even talk to my own family. And that's really frustrating. But the sad thing is, more kids than adults have this condition because they get it from their moms during childbirth. And so vaccinating your children for this, for HPV, not only is protecting them for potentially getting cancers in the future, because this can also cause cancer in your mouth and throat, and it can cause cancer for men too. But it actually is protecting their future children. Because even your son could give it to his wife, and then during pregnancy, it could be passed to the baby. And like I said, incurable. I'm in a support group, and I've talked to adults who've had it since having surgery since they were 6 months old. That they're counting. They're in the hundreds now and still going. So it's really sad. And for kids, because they have little airways, they often have to have a breathing tube. So it's great. I wish they had it when I was younger. I would have never have to deal with this. So
Thank goodness they have it now.
Now, another vaccine preventable disease, the MMR vaccine covers 3 diseases, and one of them is German measles, rubella. That's what the R in MMR is. And they didn't figure out until about the early 90s that kids needed another booster later when they were older. And I didn't get that. I was college age at the time, but I wasn't in college. They went around to the colleges vaccinating women. And I caught, I was Iowa's first congenital rubella case in I think it was 32 years.
Oh, wow.
With my second pregnancy. I was lucky. It was not early in my pregnancy, but that baby still was very sick when it was born and nearly died.
I remember standing in line at my high school. We were all in line for the booster. Our class, we have a webpage. And we were all remembering that day together. We're all standing in line to get that MMR booster. My
mom had a friend who's had a teenage son who was blind, deaf, and an intellectual disability from a rubella infection in the first trimester. So, and of course, back in the day, every summer there would be outbreaks back in the 1950s of polio. And these kids had to live in this giant metal container that helped them breathe because we didn't have vents back then. And when I was a home care nurse, I actually cared for an elderly man who had had polio as a kid and survived, and it came back when he was older. And he had to go back on a vent. He was completely paralyzed and eventually died. So these diseases are really scary. I'll take a shot in my arm, and when we talk side effects, your arm gets sore, you might get a fever. That means your immune system is working. I actually, if I don't get sore, I get worried. Ooh, I'm not building the antibodies. I might get, the flu. And yes, you can still get sick sometimes after being vaccinated because maybe you were kind of under the weather when you got your shot and your immune system was busy fighting a cold and didn't build antibodies. And so when you don't have enough antibodies, when the invader comes and the invader goes, ha ha, I'm charging in, and it takes longer for your body to fight back, but
Right.
it'll fight back still.
Right.
You'll be less sick
Mhm.
and not sick for as long.
Right.
And your risk of getting severely sick and having to go to the hospital is way, way down.
Right.
So when people say, oh, I got the flu shot and I still got the flu, that happens sometimes. And if it happens like right after you get the flu shot, like within a week, you probably got exposed before you got the shot.
Yeah.
And it takes about a week
Couple weeks. Yeah.
for those invaders to build up a big enough army to make you sick.
Right.
So it wasn't the flu shot that caused you to get sick. It literally is impossible for the flu shot to make you sick because it's literally not a live virus.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Well, and sometimes too, right, if I understand it correctly, there's different strains or different types of each flu, and they'll talk about that. And sometimes they might not get that strain in that recipe that they put in your arm.
Right.
And then you still have better antibodies against it, even if it's not exactly correct.
Right. If you get a flu shot every year, you have better immunity than if this is your first time getting a flu shot, because you kind of got broad immunity against many flu viruses.
Mhm.
And so one that mutates might be able to sneak past your immune system a little bit, but your immune system will go, I think that looks familiar.
It's like flu.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
so even if it's not perfectly the same type of,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Okay. So you talked about this a little bit, but what it was like for children before we had vaccines. Did you have anything else you talked about in the 1950s when children would just,
Yeah.
come down with polio and
it was just super scary.
Mhm.
I mean, we generally had bigger families back then because kids died so frequently.
Mhm.
I mean, pretty much every family could expect to lose at least one child. I grew up, my family had hosted a refugee family from Vietnam. They originally had 7 children. They had one adult child go with them, one that stayed behind because she was married.
Mhm.
But the other 5 children all died at the same time from smallpox.
Oh,
The water wasn't clean,
yeah.
and she bathed them, and all those smallpox sores got infected. All 5 children died at the same time.
Mm. Yeah.
It just, being a parent back then, it used to be a tradition to not, and it still is in some cultures, to not name your infant until their first birthday.
Mm.
Because the odds of them not living till their first birthday was so high, it was a way to not get too attached to them.
Oh, that's very sad.
Very sad. We couldn't imagine doing that today.
Right.
Yeah.
So this isn't on the sheet, but this is kind of heavy stuff for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way we can help them feel better about it and not so, like, other than saying it's not, the pain isn't there for very long and it helps long term? Is there another way that kids can understand we're not trying to scare them?
Right. We're giving you superpowers. It really is.
It is.
I mean, it's like magic that we have these vaccines, that it's not a medicine per se, it's making our own body stronger. And when people say, oh, but natural is better. Do you drink dirty water? Because that's very natural. But we treat our water with chlorine, and we filter it, and we take out all the bad bugs so that we can be healthier. And nobody says, oh, I'm going to drink dirty water because it's natural and make my body stronger. No, that's just gross.
Yeah.
Reality is, I want my body to be strong. I eat healthy, I exercise, I take my vitamins, and I get my vaccine. All my vaccines.
Right.
Thank you. That makes me feel better too.
Yeah. So, kids, muscle up. Be
That army. Build your army.
Build your army. Be strong and say, you, stay out of my body.
That's right.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you visiting us today.
All right. Stay healthy, kids.
Okay, we're back with our discussion questions. We are going to get started. First question, what part of the story stood out to you the most? Was it Jesus' shining? Was it Moses and Elijah appearing? or God's voice? Why do you think that was so incredible? Why do you think God told the disciples to listen to Jesus? How can our family listen to Jesus today? Question number 3, Peter wanted to build tents for Jesus, Moses, and Elijah. What does that show about how Peter felt? Have you ever wanted to stop a special moment from ending? Talk about it. Question 4, the disciples felt afraid when Jesus told them not to be afraid. When have you felt afraid and then felt better after someone comforted you? What helped you feel better? Question number 5, how can our family look for glimpses of hope or shining moments this week? Try to name one small thing that each person is going to try to notice. So, as we go into the world, may we look and see the bright and good things around us this week. May we listen to what is true and what is kind. Amen. We thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.